Hello, Culture Matters podcast guest. Oh, I must be nervous. I'm ready to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode that I think is perfect. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I think that quote perfectly resembles some of the leadership, kinship of Laura Brandao. Previously, episode 24 of season 2 of the Culture Matters podcast, a good friend, a supporter, author, say yes every day, a profound speaker and order, and leader in the mortgage industry for all, I would argue, and partner of EPM. And thank you so much for coming on. We've been doing this theme about how to think about today, Q2 of 2023. And so that's where my first questions are. How are you thinking? And how do we need to be thinking in this time of feels confusing at some level?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me back, Jay. It's always a pleasure, and I love spending time with you. So thank you very much. And I just did a webinar today about mindset, right? So we are having this discussion about no matter who you are, no matter what point in your life you're at, how you perceive the world in that moment and your perspective in that moment will either negatively or positively affect you. Now, you've read many, many studies of the example of the teacher that says to one group of children, "You are brilliant. You are all a genius. You got 100 on the test." And then the other group of kids, they say, you need to work harder. You're going to struggle in this class. So you're going to struggle in your efforts. And it's okay that you're not as smart as the other kids. And it's proven that once someone feels either they're the best or they're not, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, it's kind of the same thing in your mindset. If you wake up every morning saying, "Oh, it's so hard. There's no houses on the market right now. Inventory is so short. I've already refied my entire database and all these people have 2% rates." Guess what? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are absolutely only going to see that everything is hard. There's no inventory. All your clients are already taken care of because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for things to be hard because in your mind, you've already told yourself this is the only thing you're going to see. Now, when you wake up and you start your day, and I will tell you for myself, I start my day in a sense of gratitude because the very first thing as I open my eyes is thank you for another day, because that's the very first gift that I received in that day. And then from there, I think to myself, all the things I get to do. I don't have to do them. I get to do them. I get to go to work. I get to help my team. I get to help families and clients. I get to make a positive impact on this world. I get to be a mother and a grandmother and a wife and a daughter. I get to do all of those things because so many times again in our minds, we're thinking, oh, I have to go to work, or I have to take care of the kids today, or I have to go make breakfast for my husband or partner or whatever that is, right? But when you change that to, I get to go in my car that I was able to afford, that I was able to have a purchase and get that. Don't look at the traffic that it takes to get somewhere. Look at it as the opportunity that you have, that you are blessed, that you are able to get into that car and make your way. So I think a lot of it starts with right from how you start your day. If you start your day in this mode of I have to, or where everything is going to be hard, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get hard. You're going to get feeling as if you're required to do something versus then the blessing that you have that you are able to do those things. Even down to, I'm grateful for my health, because I know that if I woke up and my back hurt and I couldn't walk, or if if I had some kind of injury, or I woke up with a migraine or something, right there, that's the only thing I can focus on. You can't focus on helping families or clients or anyone else. All I can focus on is the fact of I'm in excruciating pain of whatever that ailment is. So when I wake up and I say, I'm thankful that I'm strong, I'm thankful that my mind is sharp, I'm thankful that all of this is where my energy and my optimism and my positive comes from. Now, do not get me wrong. I have issues just like every human on this planet. We all have things we're dealing with. Do not get me wrong. But I have a choice that I can focus on that, or I can focus on the positive impact and the gratefulness of what I'm able to provide in the goodness of this day.
What are your thoughts about where entitlement falls into that?
I don't think there's any entitlement. I don't think any of us are entitled to receive or feel that they're entitled in any way. I don't think there's such a thing as being entitled, because none of us are entitled to anything in this world. None of us. It's interesting that you even bring that up. When I was coming up through the industry, me and my husband bought our first house. I was 25 years old. And I actually worked at the telemarketing firm. So I wasn't in the mortgage industry. Yes, I generated leads for the mortgage industry, but I didn't understand mortgages, right? So we struggled paycheck, my husband working a second job, delivering newspapers, me working night times, making $7 an hour as a telemarketer. And we were able to buy our first house with an FHA mortgage with $5,000 down. That was every penny we had. $5,000, we bought our house. Okay.
Wow.
Jay, I made a promise that I would never move my kids out of this house. Meaning, it didn't matter that I increased my title or my income or my knowledge in the mortgage industry, because I wanted my kids to grow up in a normal middle class area, not ever feeling you're entitled or you are higher, or that it was important to me to do that, because it's a lesson of, I'll never forget that feeling of only having $5,000 to put down on a house. I will never forget how I literally was maxed at how much I was qualified for. I remember that like it was yesterday, and I'll never forget it, because that ties to why I'm so passionate about the mortgage business.
Wow. Was it a gift?
I did get a gift for the closing costs. That was my down payment.
No, meaning that, like the metaphor, right? Like the gift, the meaning, was it the right decision to do that in spite of the fears that come with that?
It's funny. I have these conversations now with my grown children, and I ask them, do you think that was the right decision? Because I made that decision for them, right?
Yeah.
And to this day, now my oldest son married his high school sweetheart that was in the town that we stayed in, right? My youngest son, his entire friend group, that now that they're grown and married and everything, that friend group that grew up in this town, like that's it, all amazing, great people. And they say all the time, they would have never wanted to move away. Like, this is home base, right? This is where we are. And so maybe that's not the decision for everyone, but for myself, it kept me planted, rooted. It kept me rooted. And it made me realize that just because you move up in your career, or just because you're able to financially be a little bit more stable, that doesn't mean you have to necessarily go to the highest level of adjusting your, where you live or what you're doing based on that. And maybe that's a lesson in the mortgage industry, right? How many times have we seen all of a sudden the mortgage industry gets busy and people go out and they spend high levels of, they think the compensation is going to just keep rolling in. And then we go in a downturn and they can't maintain that lifestyle. Why are they doing that higher lifestyle? For what purpose? Who are they proving that to? What is that doing for them of having to try to keep going up just because there was a boom?
An advantage to, in the long term, not to get sucked into that? Or like, what is your thoughts on that?
Yes, because it takes the pressure off. When markets turn, one thing I've learned, and I've been through many a difficult market, that's one thing off your back that you're not stressed out of. Okay, now you went out and you raised your level of living to this higher level, and then the market adjusts. It doesn't necessarily go down. It adjusts, right? It normalizes. But that normalization isn't the same as what you just went out and you went and you bought things at a much higher income level.
What do you say to the person listening to this that is hearing on the television or in the media, the high, everything's more expensive generally, but also the housing, that might be afraid they want to get that first home like you were at one time? What's your advice to them? Should they, like, how do they process making that decision or not? Maybe they're thinking, I'll wait.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to go back to that original situation of my 25-year-old
I'm this
self.
afraid person right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you the 25-year-old self, right? So me as a 25-year-old self, back in that time, the loan officer would come to your apartment and sit down with you with papers, that you would read and you would sign. And, he goes through everything and gives you an initial good faith estimate back then, right? And, he just puts a bunch of numbers literally handwritten on a paper and hands it over to you, right? Well, about 3 weeks later, after that application, I get something in the mail, right? So the mail comes and I open up the mail and it's my mortgage commitment. So my God, I'm beaming, right? Yay, we're qualified. We've got our mortgage commitment. We have a closing date. And then as I kept reading, it says, you have 5 business days to send this back signed along with a check for 1% commitment fee. It might as well have been $1 million, Jay, because remember, I was using all the money. And I remember sitting in my living room crying to myself saying, oh my God, I am beyond scared. What did I do? Am I going to put my family in a tight situation? Are we going to be able to make this payment for the next 30 years or whatever, right? Like, what's going to happen? Now, of course, my husband came home. My husband was like, Laura, we got this. We're going to be able to do this. We're young. We got plenty of years to work this out. So my advice is, yeah, it is scary. So number one, make sure you're working with a great mortgage professional that is going to be there to answer your questions, to guide you through the process, to make sure that you are well aware of everything you need to do, and make sure that, of course, follow their lead, because they will know if you're qualified for up to what limit, right? And that you're being a comfortable spot. The whole moral of that story, Jay, is yes, it is scary, but when you work with the right professionals that can guide you through, real estate is one of the best investments that you will ever make. That home that I bought all those years ago, the value of how much it has increased is overwhelming. I mean, I refinanced the house years ago and we added an addition onto the house and we used part of that house for sending kids to college and things like that. My advice would be, yes, it is a good time. but just make sure that you're working with the right mortgage professionals to guide you. It is scary, but it is always a good time to invest in real estate.
Wow. What are people, what's happening out there?
It's hard.
Like, where are the,
It's-
where is this? So there's silver lining. Listening to you, I'm ready to get to work. So where's the work? You know, are things happening? Is there opportunity? And if so, what do you see and where is it? And how do we, what do I need to do when I wake up in the morning outside of, let me see if I can get I get to work today.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've done that, right? I'm waking up and I'm working through my cynicism.
Yeah.
Now what?
All right. You have to have your plan before you wake up. All right. So number one, the way that I look at everything is I always want to get 1% better every single day. Okay. And the way that I do that is I look backwards to what I did previous. Now, this isn't every single thing I do in my day. Let's say I'm an originator. Let's just use an example, right? So let's say I'm an originator. And yesterday I reached out and was able to make contact with 4 realtors. Let's just say, right? I made a bunch of phone calls and emails and social media messages, and I was able to make contact with 4 realtors yesterday. Okay. My plan before I wake up, like this is last night, before I go to bed, my plan should be, I'm not stopping until I get 5. Like whatever I have to do, no matter how many messages, no matter phone calls, whatever approach I'm doing, until I get 5, I am not stopping. And so my method is always 1% better every day. And I pick different things. So if I'm working on a particular vertical, for our company, 3 p.m., I may say, okay, my Monday focus is this particular vertical, right? And last week I got to this, I accomplished this. Well, now that means this Monday, I know I need to go at least 1% better than what I did a week ago. And I segment it out by the days of the week. So I have different focuses that, maybe realtors are on Monday, and maybe financial planners are on Tuesday, and maybe divorce attorneys are on Wednesday, and maybe I'm going to reach out to lenders, and I'm going to make contacts with lenders on Thursday. So I would say before you ever wake up, you need to have your plan the day before of what you're going to step into that next morning. So after you've gone through your morning routine, that your mind is sharp and you are ready to get to work, you're not haphazardly just waiting for things to appear. You know exactly what your plan is, and you're beating whatever you did previously. Whatever that measure is, you're going to beat that measure. And if you compound that over and over again, obviously the bar just keeps rising higher and higher.
Or have you found that people have gotten so used to things coming to them in the last few years that they're stuck without realizing they're stuck?
I think most people are afraid to put the plan because they think they already are setting themselves up that they think they're going to fail. So I think people know what need to be done, but they're actually afraid to implement the plan because they're like, well, how am I going to get 5 realtors to answer me? So they just don't do it. And what they do is they wait for something else to happen. Oh, something went wrong with the Smith family. I have to jump in. And I have to call people, and I have to run around with the processor, and I have to search for solutions. And as long as I'm focusing on trying to fix this problem with the Smith family, well, then I'm not going to worry about the 5 realtors that I'm trying to make relationships with. We're playing with our minds, trying to say, well, I'm busy, working on whatever fire is coming at me, but we're fooling ourselves. We're playing games with ourselves because we're saying, well, I'm afraid I'm never going to be able to get those 5 realtors. So I'm going to fill my day with distractions. Maybe I'm going to mess around on social media and waste time there. Or maybe I'm going to, look for problems, because sometimes people look for problems to fill their day to make it look like they were busy and accomplished something,
Mm.
but it's fake. It's a facade and not really making any progress.
Why do you think I why do you think I work well when things go down and not when things are up? Am I just like an
I'm
entitled
similar.
person?
I'm similar, Jay. So I can tell you that over all these crises in the mortgage industry, I've always say, man, my successful years are always when things were the worst, not when things were the best. So to your point, we have that in common.
Like, I'm thinking if I worked this hard 2 years ago, I think I'd be on the moon. And I'm like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Like I did. So how can we help ourselves in that way then? And I don't know. I'm just curious, like, that's what your thoughts are on that, because that's been one of my realizations in this. I don't, maybe I'm overcritical of myself, but it's not as if I don't work hard, although I'm very critical. Jenna would say that I work hard, but I just feel like I turn it up when the heat is on.
Me
So
too.
is that leadership, or is it I'm not a leader?
Well, this is a good question for both of us.
I didn't think this through
Honestly,
before I decided to invite you on here, but hey, while we're here, I'd rather be authentic. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. And me and you are the same, right? Because I definitely do my best work in the most challenging times. Not so much when and you know what, Jay? I wonder if it's because we see where people are struggling. And when we see when people are struggling, we jump in to try to lift up. So I think we turn it up, and we kind of, not only are we moving forward, but I think we're also, to your point, I think we're extending our leadership to others, because when the going gets tough, one of the biggest things that you see lacking is leadership.
Mm.
Most people go inward. Most people go small when things go tough. So I think what happens is we kind of get big, and we kind of go in big and head first. And when people don't need us to go as big, I think we just stay at a normal level. I don't know. That's what I'm kind of speaking for myself in that. And I don't know if it's a right or a wrong, but I can tell you I've historically have done the same thing.
Yeah, you think it's hard to gauge even when times are good and when times are bad when you're in the thick of it?
No, I think you can tell.
You can tell. What are some times that things are all right? What are some signs that, for our audience, and of course we could talk about ourselves, but for our audience, when it may be time to pick it up a notch, to kick it up a notch. Like, what are some signs, maybe day to day, week by week, when, self-awareness wise, somebody listening could say, oh, maybe I'm not working as hard as I think I could be right now.
Yeah, I think what I just said about people going small, when you start to see that things start to get a little quiet, it's a warning sign. Like, that's the canary in the coal mine. The
Okay.
minute things start to get because I mean, think about it, Jay, right? Let's just, and I'll just use social media as an example, but that's not necessarily the trigger. But you could notice that when things start to slow, that slows down. You start to see that not as much activity is happening. Even, the announcements aren't happening, the collaboration isn't happening, the people coming together, the projection of, let me tell you about my business and let me share my insights. People start to go quiet because they're not sure what to say. And what starts to happen as business starts to die down a little, people naturally, as humans, are not sure how to communicate with others. So people start pulling back, that they start going inward, and they start, and it's funny, I just said this today. People are afraid to reach out to their borrowers, to their realtors, to their referral partners, because they think it's an awkward conversation that they don't know what to ask them for. Like, oh, you're my family that I helped a few years ago, that the interest rate you closed at is at 2.5. Well, how do I call you and say, so how are things going? Do you have an interest in a refi? The rates are 6, at this time. But you're looking at it all wrong. You're looking at it all wrong, because when you have a relationship with someone, it doesn't matter what the rate is. You have a relationship and you want to continue to reach out to those people to always check in on them. It doesn't matter what
Is
the
it
rate
like,
is.
do you need a reason to call your mother?
Exactly.
Now, I did when I was angry with her.
Well, and almost it's like that too. When you're scared
With
of someone, you don't
strangers.
call.
Yeah, the anxiety, right? But you just gave me a thought. I'm like, if I was calling people right now in that space, I'd be saying there's 16 trillion in consumer debt. I think maybe I have the number wrong. Are you one of the broke ones?
Right. But you are
Now,
correct.
my personality is a little bit more crazy.
But you're on the right path. You're on the right path. That as inflation went up, people started utilizing their credit cards much more. And as the Fed is raising these interest rates, the rates are much, much higher on these credit cards. And people, this is again one of the lowest savings times. People have already exhausted all of that money and stimulus money that
So
they
this is my
had.
question
It's
to you.
gone.
If we have a relationship, because we've done business together,
Yeah.
and I don't call you as a friend to ask, how's your financial well-being? Am I your friend?
You're not
Am I
in a
doing my job?
relationship. You're not in a relationship. I mean, Jay, what you just said. Listen, Jay, yeah, crazy times right now. I'm calling you to check in on you. Because I understand that there, lots of things going on in the world. Just calling to check in. How are you doing? Want to let you know there's lots of programs available. We can do cash out. We can consolidate some stuff. Just wanted to check in and see how the family's doing, and and kind of have that conversation, right?
I'm laughing over here because I'm just like thinking about the beginnings of Culture Matters, all those hot calls I used to call them. Start with the heart, obtain the truth. I created this whole like game basically, which I was re-listening to our podcast. Anyone listening to this, episode 24, season 2, you said, well, back in the days when you did telemarketing, you used to come up with games to lead people to the phone. Why is the phone so important to be open to using? And I ask selfishly because frankly, without that phone, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't even know you.
Right.
I wouldn't be.
I wouldn't have a mortgage,
exist.
and I wouldn't have a mortgage career. Without the phone, I wouldn't have a mortgage.
So how do we
career.
get people to fall in love with the phone like you did in the beginnings of your career and throughout it? I felt as though I had to. I don't know if you remember me telling you this, but I used to go to real estate offices with Jenna made me throw them out. Golden truck nuts.
Okay.
Like testicles, excuse my French. And remember, I used to wear velvet. She's helped me mature a bit, but I used to go to these offices and I would wear them around my waist. And I brought a gong, and when I made appointments, I would hit the gong. And that was not for everybody, but I was asked to leave some places. But the point is, I had to do whatever I could do to psych myself up to make those phone calls to people that didn't want me to talk to them. And like, if I hadn't done that, who knows where I'd be? Or maybe if I had done that, who knows where I'd be? Maybe better. But like, I'm curious what you think about belly to belly conversations with people today. How do we psych our audience up to go about doing it? How do we shoot, how do we do it? Right. I'm talking them in past tense. Maybe there's some old friends I need to call and see how they're doing. But yeah, what would be your advice to me? What would be advice to the audience?
So, and it's funny, we started out having a conversation about mindset, right? And again, it starts with mindset. Now, if you're speaking about, especially someone you don't know, right? If you're going in completely cold, because it's easier. If you've helped a family in the past, you should have some type of relationship or reference.
Yeah, we should differentiate with
the cold. So let's go in cold. We're cold.
Yeah, let's start with that.
So even, back in telemarketing days, but and I've said this, Jay, you want to talk about grateful? I am so grateful that I started that way, because the foundational skills of communication, my whole career was based on foundational skills of being able to communicate with someone to where they felt me. They got my energy. They understood my passion. They could feel what I was trying to communicate. Now, did everyone say yes to me? No way. Absolutely not. That didn't work like that. Magic. I'm not hypnotizing them. They're not saying yes to me. I said, but my mindset, and this is to this day, my mindset is that person on the other end will be better for having a conversation with me. I will make them feel better than before they spoke to me. And I make it a mission. I don't have to go in thinking that I'm going to get what I want, whatever that I'm asking, whatever I'm communicating, whatever I'm selling. I'm sure you and I have had tons of very uncomfortable, negative conversations. So not every conversation is positive. Not every situation is going to be something someone wants to hear. But that doesn't change the fact that we will listen. We will bring our energy in a positive way to them, and we will allow them to feel that they will be better off after speaking to me. And so I think a lot of people, before this goes back to the beginning, before they pick up that phone, already in their mind, they are thinking it's a no. And that self-fulfilling prophecy again, people go in, oh, I'm bothering them. Oh, I'm an interruption. Oh, they don't really need me. Oh, my rate is too high. Oh, my service isn't going to be as good as XYZ company. If you go in with any of those thoughts in your brain, you might as well, please don't even call. Don't pick up the phone. Don't even say anything. But if you go in with the mindset of, I'm going to reach out to Mr. Smith, because you know what? I want to see how the Smith family's doing. I want to check in on them. I want to sincerely check in, not to look for a sale, because the sale is a reaction, right? You're not going in for the sale. You're going in because you're checking in on someone you have a previous relationship with, on the warm. On the cold, don't go in with a sale. I don't care what you're doing, whether it's cold or whether it's warm. Go in with the mindset that you have some value to bring to them, whether it's getting to know them, whether it's making a connection, whether it's something that you saw on social media. I got to tell you, Jay, I just said this a week ago. We live in such a glorious time. When I was early in my career, I couldn't find out about people to know
You're
if
right.
we have all this information in our hands. We can get to know someone before we call them, you can Google them, you can go on social media and see, you can understand what they like and what they don't like before you ever reach out. You can know how they're going to adjust to you. Do your homework. Have some pride. Let's go back to that. What am I doing the night before I wake up? Do your homework. Make your list of, these are the 40 people I'm going to reach out to tomorrow. And I've already researched them on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I already know that they have a dog and they've got a kid and they're dancers. They love to do dancing. No, do your homework. Have your facts. Don't just think you can willy-nilly wander into places and say, I've arrived, now you're better. No, do your homework, do the work, put in the time, and then go to work.
How important is to know what you're talking about? And what level do you think of commitment people put into, or what level of commitment does it take to be competent at something? Like, how do you view that?
One of my negative things about the mortgage industry is I don't think most people invest in their craft. I think people do not take it seriously as a career. I think most people learn the basics of what they need to know for their role in their job, but very few people know the whole picture of the industry. We have to look at being a mortgage professional as truly being a professional. I would not want my brain surgeon to operate on me if he's not up on the latest, technology and use of whatever he's supposed to be doing if he's going to be operating on me or my family. Why
Yeah.
would I choose a mortgage person that doesn't understand all of the components? So regardless if you're doing it, you don't have to necessarily be the expert in it, but you need to be curious. You need to attend webinars. You need to attend conferences to listen in and ask your questions. It's a great way to meet people. Reach out. Go to a webinar or a seminar or a conference. Listen in and then reach out to other people and say, you know what? I have a few questions. You were amazing. I love what you spoke about. I have a few follow-up questions for you. Not only will you learn, you're going to gain connections, build your network, become a leader in your craft. But I find that most people, they do what they need to do. And then when the going gets tough, they struggle. And that's the wrong way to approach your career. This is a career. This is not a job.
You think that the non-careerists are won't make it through the tougher times, or
Those are always the ones that usually don't make it. And they jump out. And then most of the time they jump back in when things get a little bit easier.
What are you excited about for 2023? Q2 right now?
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. There's so many opportunities, Jay. And I even want to mention one other thing that we spoke about at a conference last week. Last week, I was on an industry panel discussion with a bunch of leaders, and we were speaking about going through difficult cycles, right? And one of the things we talked about was, how is it that when we came into this industry, we didn't know any better, right? We came in and whatever the rate was, whatever the programs were, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what programs existed. It didn't matter what the rate was. Someone told you, this is what you've got. You've got these rates, these programs, go to work. None of us sat there going, well, what was the rate 5 years ago? Or what was the rate 10 years ago? Or did these other programs exist 15 years ago? It didn't matter. None of that mattered. Whatever it was that was before us is what we focused on. So what am I excited about? There are so many opportunities for us right now, because as long as there's a lot of shifting happening, a lot of players moving around, some people consolidating, some people going away. And the most important thing is to be able to provide that stability and that consistency in whatever you do, whether you're an originator, whether you're a lender, whether you're a broker, whether you're in operations. That stability and that consistency, you will be able to plant those seeds of foundational work right now to be ready for that growing season, because that growing season is coming. So I'm excited about all the work that's being done right now. It is going to set us up so well for that growing season, because the infrastructure, everyone should be thinking about, how strong is your foundation? Whether it's you as an individual, whether it's you as a team or an organization, that foundation is the most important thing that you need to focus on right now, so that you're ready for the growing season.
If you were, or if or when you were to write another book, what's the title?
So I am writing another book.
Oh,
it's a third version. It's a third version of my Say Yes. So it's another series of Say Yes. And it's about confidence and transformations. That's what it's about. So it's about how to gain confidence and how to be able to make it through transitions and transformations, because we're transforming every day. Listen, if you go back to episode 24, I'm different than I was in episode 24. Every day we're evolving and we're transforming. So how do we do that? And how do we work together to make that forward motion?
How important is asking questions in this time?
Valuable, most important. And I think that's at all times, right? So many times people are afraid to ask questions because one, they're afraid of the answer. And number two, they
Mm,
think that they will look foolish by being curious. But being curious and asking those questions and then listening to the answer and truly absorbing, not just ready to respond to the answer. That should always be the case. I mean, listen, right? Isn't that one of Steve Jobs' things, right? About stay curious. I mean,
yeah.
curiosity is one of the things that will continue to propel you regardless of what season we're in.
Um, w- yeah. What do you think are some of the reasons why it can be hard to ask questions?
Yeah, number one, like I said, is well, those two things. One, sometimes people hold back asking questions because they don't want to appear as if they're ignorant or on the topic, whatever the topic is, right? But we all know, number one of the best ways, not besides learning, one of the best ways to form a relationship with someone is to ask questions. Because what's the most comfortable thing for anyone to speak about? Themselves. So when you take the
Hmm.
time to ask someone questions, you are actually honoring them. You are honoring them and respecting them by saying what, and I'll use a Christine moment. I'll never forget when the first early on in Christine and I's relationship, Christine said, we were just having, I don't even know what we were speaking about, but she said to me, I see you, Laura Brandao. And simple, right? Very simple comment.
Yeah.
And literally, it blew my mind. It's the first time in my entire life that someone said to me, I see you. And I thought to myself, what a simple word, term, but yet absolutely magnificent and monumental. Because in that moment, I thought to myself, she's honoring me by saying she sees me, she hears me.
Mm,
And I think one of the greatest gifts that we can give another human being is by honoring them to ask questions.
wow. Yeah. Shout out to Christine. By the way, episode 138 just launched, and what a wild powerhouse of a anyone listening to this, check that out. And Laura, I think you'd really enjoy it too.
Awesome.
How much of a role do emotions play in business?
Oh,
And
this is
why
a
do you
good
think
question.
that is?
This
Yeah, like
is
it's been
this
on my
is a
mind
good,
a lot lately.
it's a good question, Jay. Good question. So, I mentor and coach a good amount of people in the
Yeah.
industry, right? And I came up with something a few years ago, especially for women that I work with, where I asked them to take almost like how you have your band on your wrist, right? And I almost
Yep.
tell people almost take like a rubber band or something, right? And I tell them that every time they're about to say the words, I feel, I want them to notice. I want them to almost like snap the elastic band to connect their brain that they're doing it. Because in business, you have to be very careful of taking that emotional side and turning it into counteracting your brain. Because fear is a liar and your emotions are a liar. So many times, your brain is trying to protect you, trying to protect you from harm, is trying to protect you from bad situations and uncomfortable things that don't feel good. It's protecting you. So if you do not get your emotions into awareness, and it's just a self-awareness and self-control, to realize to take that moment and recognize your brain is going into protection mode. when someone says something, or you see something, or you read an email in a certain tone that you're kind of reading it a certain way and spinning it in whatever way your brain is seeing it, you have to take that moment and snap yourself into, take the emotion out, take a moment to recenter, reread it, and look at it from that perspective. Because again, that protective mode, you can't make decisions when your mind is in that level. Because so many times, and I can't even tell you the number of times I'll get a text message or a call, especially from some of the women I mentor, and they'll be like, Laura, you won't believe what happened. Blah, 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 blah. They'll tell me this person, this. And I'll go, you're going to take a moment. I want you to replay it. And I want you to speak to me as if that didn't happen to you. Take yourself out of it. Look at it almost as an outsider. And now tell me what happened. And I listen and I ask questions. And I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, they don't see the situation the way they saw it when they first reached out to me.
Laura, thank you for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. Again, I'm looking forward to you coming on again in 2023, sooner than 3 years. Oh my gosh.
Time flies, Jay.
Yeah, well, and it'll be easier because I'm getting my act together. So we'll do more of these. Final word for our audience. What you say is like, what's the word for 2023?
I do believe mindset is it. Because if you look at things from that scarcity mindset, from that fear mindset, I'm telling you, no matter what you try to do, you will see nothing in front of you but hard and scarcity and negative. So you need to get your mindset in the right place, and you need to see the good. You need to look at the opportunities. You need to connect with those relationships and bond strong right now. Otherwise, you're not going to be ready for that growing season.